welcome to the regular Cedar Falls Council meeting this January 7th, 2019. I'll now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Blanford.
Here.
Dara.
Here.
Wheeland.
Here.
Green.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is approval of minutes. Item 1, is there a motion to approve the regular meeting of December 17th?
So move. Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I will now like to hand over things to Director Olson for the swearing in of Cedar Falls' newest finest. Director Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, tonight we have a privilege to swear in 8 new public safety officers. They all started working last week for the city, and today was their first day of a 6-week fire academy class they're attending, and after that, 6 of the 8 will have to go to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, and then they'll move on to their field training. So it's probably 8 months or more of training for all of them before they're operating solo. I'd like to just give a quick bio of the 8 individuals. Officer Caleb Brugman was raised in Garner, attended NIAC where he earned his associate's degree. He's currently a senior at the University of Northern Iowa. Officer Eric Van Horn was raised in West Union, attended Upper Iowa University where he earned an associate degree. He's worked as a dispatcher, a jailer, and a part-time officer. Most recently was employed as a police officer in Cedar and a recent graduate of the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. Officer Marissa Abbott was raised in Waterloo, currently a senior at the University of Northern Iowa, recently employed as a dispatcher at the University of Northern Iowa and as a community service officer for the city of Cedar Falls. Officer Kyle Mananak was raised in Monticello, attended Kirkwood Community College where he earned his associate's degree. Previously employed by the Iowa DNR, where he spent 2 summers as a wildland firefighter fighting forest fires in California and Missouri. Attended the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy in 2014. Previously employed at the Black County Sheriff's Office since 2014 as a deputy there, where he served as a field training officer and as a SWAT officer for the Sheriff's Office. He also works part-time for the city of Jessup as a police officer. Officer Tyler Lennox, raised in Tripola, attended Central College in Pella where he earned a bachelor's degree, most recently employed by the state of Iowa as a corrections officer. Officer Hannah Hoffa, raised in Belle Plaine, attended Iowa Central Community College where she earned her associate's degree on a golf scholarship, recently employed as a dispatcher for the Benton County Sheriff's Department. Officer Tyler Putney, raised in Forest City, state wrestling champ, earned his Eagle Scout at age 17. Attended the University of Northern Iowa, where he played football for 5 years. Recently graduated with a bachelor's degree, completed his internship in 2017 with the Cedar Falls Department of Public Safety. And Officer Thomas Baldus was raised in Hampton, attended the University of Northern Iowa, where he recently graduated with a bachelor's degree. So if the officers want to go ahead and line up here, we'll get going.
Welcome to your new officers. If you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the state of Iowa, the charter laws and ordinances of the city of Cedar Falls, the rules and regulations of the Cedar Falls Police Department, the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of my position as Public Safety Officer to the best of my ability. Congratulations. I believe now we'll have folks pin the badge on the new officers. Let's congratulate these folks.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Congratulations. Welcome. Good handshake. Congratulations.
You too. On you too. Ow, that was a.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for welcome. Thank you.
We'll just give a moment here.
They must go in there now.
Well, I guess why we know why they came.
Really cleared out.
Yeah, would you please close those, just at least to the point of being all the way?
What do you say?
Thanks. Very good. The best part of the meeting, maybe, so far. Moving right along, are there any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Next is a special order of business. Item 2 is a public hearing on proposed amendments to the city's FY19 budget. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any written communications filed with the city clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we have public comments, I'll open it up to Lisa Redding, a controller and city treasurer, for comments on this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. The public hearing tonight is for the fiscal 2019 budget amendment. It is the first budget amendment of this fiscal year, and it is necessary due to timing of some capital projects. And there's just a few line items on this budget amendment.
Very good. Thank you. I will now open it up for the public, for any public comments on this public speaking portion. Hearing and seeing none, declare the hearing closed. Item 3 is a resolution approving and adopting amendments to the city's FY budget 19 budget. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 4 is a public hearing on the proposed rezoning from A1 to R1 of property located to the north of Arbors Drive and west of Richard Road. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any written communications filed with the city clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Once again, before we go to the public comments, I'll open it up for Iris Lehman for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Panther Farms LLC is proposing to rezone about 40 acres of land from agricultural A1 to residential R1. The property, as mentioned by the mayor, is just north of the Aldrich Elementary School on the west side of Richard Road, shown here in this slide. This is the first step of allowing single-family residential development on this land, like in the neighboring areas. It also provides for an extension and future connection of Arbors Drive to Green Hill Road. The rezoning request is consistent with the city's future land use map, also shown on this slide, showing low-density residential. The Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval of this rezoning request.
Thank you, Iris. Open it up now for any public comment. Hearing and seeing none, declare the hearing closed. Item 5 is pass an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by removing property from A1 and placing the same in R1 upon its first consideration. Is there a motion, please?
I'll move. Second.
Motion second. Open it up for council. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is new business, the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion. If someone from council or the public requests an item to be pulled for such discussion, any requests from council?
I'd like to pull number 8.
Number 8. Anything else from council?
Mr. Mayor, never mind. Sorry.
Okay. Anyone from the public? I'll now summarize the consent calendar minus item 8. Item 6 is approve the recommendation of the mayor relative to the appointment of Brooke Crozier Sidebotham to the Visitors and Tourism Board. Thanks for Brooke for serving for the city. Item 7 is receive and file the Committee of the Whole minutes of December 17th. Item 9 is receive and file monthly reports of November 2018. And 10 is approving applications for permits and licenses. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar minus item 8?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Back to item 8 is adopt the Green Hill Road Corridor Traffic Study. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Up for discussion or questions? Mr. Burr?
Well, I don't feel it's appropriate to adopt that at this time, simply because we have conflicting expert reports regarding the intersection of Main and Green Hill, and we've not discussed the differences between the ACOM report and this Green Hill study report. A second reason that I feel it's a disservice to the public to adopt it right now is that there are additional costs if we adopt this plan. And we discussed tonight the CIP, there's like 50 items of unmet needs, and we have never discussed whether we want this additional cost to go to the Green Hill Road Corridor or to any of these other unmet needs. And the third reason is we've not yet had an opportunity to review traffic patterns. University Avenue, traffic has not returned to University Avenue. We still have heavy traffic on Rainbow and also on Green Hill Road. And I would like us to discuss whether or not, or look at whether doing this particular project would have an adverse effect to Orchard and Ridgeway before we moved ahead on it. I don't have a problem if we want to just receive and file the report, but I don't think it's appropriate to adopt it at this time.
Anything further from council? Mr. Green?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to change the adopt to receive and file so that it reads receive and file the Green Hill Road Traffic Corridor Study.
Motion on the table to change the wording of item 8 to receive and file away from adopt.
Second.
Second. There's a second. Any further discussion from council? Mr. Miller?
If I may, Mr. Burr mentioned a couple different studies. What are those in reference to? An ACOM study?
ACOM had a report or a study on the intersection of Green Hill and Main, and and it was a different conclusion than what this report was, and we've never in committee discussed their report versus this report.
When was that report done?
Do you know, Ron, when that was? A
Stephanie,
couple
can
years
you
ago?
chime in, please?
Yeah, it was approximately 2014, I believe, is when that was completed. And that was reviewed as a part of this traffic study that Snyder put together.
The ACOM study from 2014 was reviewed.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of order, council just did approve, not approve, but received the minutes of the previous committee of the whole minutes, which included the traffic study update. So I think the council's already acted on receiving and filing.
If I may, item 7 is received and file the committee of the whole minutes. It wasn't that there was a meeting and a report came forward and that was what was approved, not necessarily changing the wordage from adopt to receive and file?
Right. So it, being part of the committee report, it's already been received and approved in the previous
Okay, so
consent calendar, number 7.
would you suggest an alternative to the two council persons' concerns regarding adopting in Green Hill, maybe as opposed to changing the verbiage to what you said was just approved in item 7? Is there an alternative?
No,
Is there concerns?
if the council wishes to adopt it, now's the time to adopt it. It's already received and filed the report. So action for council now is either adopt it or not adopt it.
Mr. Mayor, as a question for what we're actually doing then, if we vote to adopt this tonight, does that commit us to the recommendations in the proposal? Are we saying that what Snyder recommended for each of these intersections, by adopting, my sense is that we are now agreeing and committing to this plan?
Good question. Stephanie or staff?
We would be using the traffic study recommendations, if it were adopted, as the planning guide to help us as we have projects come up. So it would be used as a basis for starting design, and then there would be a lot of design details about access and exact configuration, number of lanes, that kind of thing, that gets really hammered out more in that design phase. But if the concept in the plan is for a certain type of intersection control to happen, whether it's a stop sign, a traffic signal, or a roundabout, that's the first guiding principle. Is if this plan is adopted, that's what guides what we would move into a preliminary design to do.
But each of those designs would still have to come before council.
Correct, right.
Frank?
It just seems to me, the last paragraph of this memo just says the information within the study will then be used for planning purposes, both in design of the project as well as future capital improvements. Design will include more detailed analysis on access, geometry, utilities, and the like. So it just seems to me we're just approving the discussion, and there's a lot more planning that's going to come before us. And I would think within that, reviewing the outdated ACOM study and others would be a part of that as well.
So I'm at a point of order, Mr. Rogers. So from that point of order, I will remove the motion and second to receive and file.
Right.
And open it back up for either Ms. DeBoer or Mr. Green, since they made the first motion and second for the receive and file.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I failed to mention another alternative. That's to table the item.
Table it, right. So it is now on the table, motion and seconded, open for discussion as it was previously with no amendments. Move forward. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, if I may, I guess to Mr. Burr's point as well, that I've heard this numerous times, that traffic hasn't returned to University Avenue or something along those lines, and I don't know that there's any factual data to support that at this point. I don't disagree that during construction, people started using Green Hill Road or alternatives, I guess, if you will, but from my experience on University Avenue, there's plenty of traffic on it. So without any traffic data, I just want to point out that I don't know that that is 100% factual. It might be more of an opinion.
Anything further for discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Given what Mr. Dara said, that it appears that there's a lot of flexibility built into this. This is just sort of a guiding principle to use, and the study appeared to have a lot of variance as far as the years we approach each intersection. So this is just a guideline that we're adopting?
As I understand it as well, yes.
Okay.
Anything further?
Can I add just that I think it's important to assure Susan and others that the concerns that you have, it seems to me, are still going to be taken into consideration as we look at this and other parts of the study. So I don't feel like it's a done deal by any means.
Each intersection, I'm assuming, will have full vetting.
Yes, obviously, correct, Ms. Sheets? Any further discussions? Been motion and second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
I hear 2 nays, I believe. Yes. You get that? Thank you. Motion does carry. Moving on to the resolution calendar, the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote in a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be pulled for such discussion. Any requests from the council?
Number 12, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry?
Number 12?
12? Anyone further from council?
Number 11.
Number 11. Anyone further from council? From the public? I'll now summarize the resolution calendar minus items 11 and 12. Item 13 is a resolution approving the concept of potential improvements to Pedersen Plaza as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Commission. 14 is approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase of equipment for the public safety facility. 15 is a resolution approving the certificate of completion for the 2018 permeable alley project. Items 16, 17, and 18 are resolutions approving work and expenditures for various sidewalk work. Item 19 is approving and authorizing execution of an agreement and grading easement in conjunction with the West First Street reconstruction project. Item 20 is approving and authorizing execution of a professional services agreement. 21 is authorizing advancement of costs for an urban renewal project and certification of expenses incurred by the city for payment relative to the South Cedar Falls urban renewal area. Item 22 is a resolution setting January 21st, the date of public hearing on the proposed FY19 through FY24 capital improvements program. 23 is receiving and filing and setting January 21st as the date of public hearing on the proposed plans for the Place to Play playground project. And 24 is receiving and filing and setting January 21st as the date of public hearing on the proposed plans for the 2019 street construction project. Is there a motion to approve the resolution minus 11 and 12?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 11 reads a resolution approving and authorizing execution of the renewal of an advertising agreement with Lee Enterprises relative to recruitment advertising. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Open up for discussion or comments? Questions?
I mainly had a question. What does the city spend overall on recruiting budget? Where do we advertise overall? And what portion of this, of the full budget, is this represent?
Sure, I can, you had a lot of questions there, Daryl, but I think I can get them all. But, so one of the things is that it really can depend every year. We can spend anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000 on recruiting. And some of it just depends how many openings we have in a year, and also what to the extent of our advertising or recruiting was. You know, it may differ if we decide to use a recruiting firm versus, you know, doing advertisement. So it really can vary, but that's probably a general range, I would say, is it's in that $25,000 to $40,000 a year that we spend. Now, oftentimes people think, well, why do you advertise in the Courier? You know, nobody reads the ads. Well, what people don't realize is what we're paying for is also to get on their online job board. So when we do that, we're, you know, people who are looking for, you know, a Monster or whatever Couriers is that's out there. Now, one of the things that can vary too is what the position is. You know, there's some positions that we know are probably geared locally, you know, that people probably in the area are going to apply for, you know, whether it's some of our entry-level positions, you know, so we usually advertise in the Courier because we know that tends to be local. We have other positions where we know we're probably going to, you know, try to maybe get from the Midwest or other places in Iowa, and then we'll look at the Register and they're online. Now, obviously, the other things we look at is it's on our website, you know, we do it on our Facebook page. We've been trying to use LinkedIn on some of our positions to see if that can help. So I'm trying to think what all the questions were that you had wrapped in there, but
Percentage.
percentage.
Percentage?
I mean, how much success, but then you kind of answer that by depending on the position, whether it's summer help for mowing versus
Right.
an
You know,
engineer.
we have some positions that we might get 40 applications. We have some positions we'll get 5. We've had some in the past, we get 100. You know, it really, we have such a wide variety of positions at the city that it's hard to kind of generalize them all.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Been motion and second. It requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving back up to item 25, is there a motion to allow bills and payroll?
I think we need number 12.
Sorry.
12, please.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry about that. Item 12, back on the table. It reads, resolution approving and authorizing execution of an independent contractor agreement for massage therapy services. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Further discussion or questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to refer this item to Committee of the Whole for discussion.
Second.
It's been referred, or amended to refer to Committee of the Whole for discussion. Any further discussion from council? And seconded, yeah.
Seconded.
Mr. Miller.
Can we get some background on it? Or the need to send it to Committee of the Whole?
Yes, I didn't want to jump the gun on it in case we didn't want to discuss it. So looking through the contract, I saw some things that just seemed odd to me, having worked in contracting for the government on the federal end. In looking at the contract, it didn't confirm with city staff. There was no competitive bid for this process. And there's just parts of it that, seeing how independent contractors typically work, This service, this massage service, is very different from that. I'm an instructor, leadership instructor at Hawkeye, and I'm an independent contractor, and I'm not allowed to advertise my business on my PowerPoint slides. I can't put my logo or anything. It's all Hawkeye. And I have nothing against the contractor, but it's the process or the way that we've implemented this contract that I have concerns about, particularly for those of you who go to the rec center, seeing as you walk into the building, it's a very large banner that advertises as private businesses services, which we rent a room out for $200 a year, $200 a month, plus $5 per massage. And just aspects of this contract, I think it can be changed to make it more applicable or palatable, but I would want to see some changes to the contract. And I did have a question for city staff. If we were to table this, or excuse me, take this item to committee, would that affect the current contract that's in place? Would this contractor still be able to provide services as is? Because as I understand it, they're looking to add an additional person to staff because they're doing so well.
At this time, Councilman Green, I think what we could do is just enter into maybe a gentleman's agreement with this individual and just let them know that we'll do it month by month under the same parameters we had before until, as if the council does want to review this a little bit more in depth, we can continue that. And we've done that in the past with some other, like the golf professional. If we did not quite get their contract done, we would extend that a month or two until we had all our business conducted.
Okay, and I would want to resolve it as quickly as possible, but I feel like it does merit discussion and more of a philosophical discussion than a technical discussion that I think council needs on this.
Mr. Blanford?
Director Ripplinger, can you just clarify, so this is an existing contract, but can you just go over how we got the service in place and why we did it in the background on it?
The city's been moving more towards private contractors or private individuals to complete some of our recreation needs. Of course, we went to a fully privatized golf course services. Previously, the city used to hire all of our fitness instructors. That ended up costing quite a bit of money in withholding and those sorts of benefits that we had to provide to those individuals. So it made more sense to hire individuals that would basically come in and utilize our facilities, which is a service to the community and the individuals who have memberships, but just relieve the city of some of their requirements as far as withholding and those sorts of issues. So this particular individual approached the city about 3 years ago, wanted to provide massage services. It started a little bit slow, but now she is completing 50 to 60 massages a month. It's well received by the Recreation Center staff. But Mr. Green, or Councilman Green, is correct. We did not send out an RFP. We did not pursue other contractors to provide this service. We just basically responded to an individual who came to our door, said that they could provide this service, and then we hired them at that time.
Have we had any other inquiries from other contractors since we started this?
I checked with Bruce Frank again this afternoon when this question came up, and according to him, we've never really had anyone else come in the door wanting to provide this service, this particular service for the rec center.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz?
Would we want to make a motion to extend the existing contract for a couple months and then pick up after we critique this further?
It'd be up to council. I mean, we can move the referral to committee ASAP. That would be maybe amending the amendment or just start fresh with that if we're comfortable with Director Ripplinger's sort of discussion of gentleman's agreement for a month or two, if that's okay with you.
We got to make that a formality to say we're making a motion to extend?
I think council's okay with that. If they're not, speak up. Yes, Mr. Boer. Sorry, I don't, maybe.
One other question was simply, is there any other independent contractors that are allowed to put up advertising material?
That's probably good. That is probably a good thing that we would need to discuss. Typically, if you're providing that service, let's say we have individuals who come in and are providing kayaks renting kayaks in our parks, or someone that comes in with a food truck. They are providing, or they're advertising at that time. So I think that's probably appropriate. The question would be is, if that person is not providing that service, should they have advertising up in our facilities at that particular time? That's the way at this point, at least, and just thinking about this for a few minutes, I would approach it.
The question, oh, excuse me, Mr. Miller?
Attorney Rogers, it notes here that you've read over the agreement and are okay with the contract that we have in place. Is there something we're missing here?
No, I drafted the language according to the parameters I was given, so I'm comfortable with the language used. These policy questions are a separate matter, though.
Is there someone else? Mr. Green?
Yes, for Director Lippinger, I was just curious, with something like a vendor service like the Falls, where we have contracted concession service, does the concessionaire place their name on as a banner? Is there any way that they're representing themselves, or are they simply operating as the Falls?
I think there's a couple different things there. We do not have concessionaires come in. We use their product, so I'm just going to use Chad's Pizza. I mean, they provide pizza at the recreation center. At the aquatic center, and also up at our Ball Diamonds. They'd be allowed at least to have advertising on their pizza boxes and those sorts of things.
Was that open for bid?
We do bid that out every. I think we bid that out about every 3 years now.
We did. Anything further from council? Mr. Whelan?
I'm curious on the golf course. Did we go with RFQ to determine who would get that service?
At the time when we discussed that, I think there was some input from the public that we wanted to retain our current golf professional, and he was under contract at that time to operate the pro shop. So at that time, we just simply amended his previous agreement to include additional duties to maintain the facility. So long story short, we did not send out RFQs. We just amended the existing contract with John Bermel.
Just a follow-up, at what point do we need to put out an RFP? Below a certain limit or above a certain limit in the contract?
Jennifer might be able to answer that.
Sure. Well, obviously, if we have construction projects, it's pretty well outlined in the Code of Iowa what you have to follow. Over a certain amount, you have to do public bidding and all that. We also then have a purchasing manual that we use internally as kind of guidelines for, like, if we're going to buy supplies. If it's over 10,000, we get written quotes, so we have guidelines on that. So I think what's difficult about some of these is they're probably not exactly outlined in our purchasing manual because they're a little unique, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So to answer your questions, do we have guidelines about certain things, whether it's goods, contracts, professional services? We do. But I think in this case, it's unusual in that usually we're spending a certain amount, where in this case, we're not necessarily spending a certain amount, for the massage therapists. So I guess the answer is, we don't really have a specific guideline for this example that we're talking about tonight. But for overall purchasing things, we have guidelines that we follow when we have to do requests for proposals.
Mr. Blanford?
Just to clarify, Director Ripplinger, this is revenue generating for us. There's no outlay for us at all, is there?
It's not a huge revenue generator. What we ended up doing is converting the meeting room right when you come in the front doors to the right, and if somebody wanted to rent that room out, it was $10 an hour. It was rarely rented. This particular individual is doing 50 to 60 massages a month, which we get $5 per massage, and so we're getting anywhere from $250 to $300 a month. So sometimes you have to balance revenues and reasonable cost to the service that they're providing. Certainly, if the city wanted to provide massage services and have to hire an employee to do that, it'd be pretty safe to say that we would probably end up in the red if we did something like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz? In simplistic form, wouldn't you look at this and say this person is just renting a room at the rec center? is what it amounts to?
That's correct. That's correct. It's no different than an individual who would rent the fitness room, an independent contractor that would rent the fitness room to do Zumba classes. It's a little bit different that this is a little bit longer term. And it probably goes back to Councilman Green's point. This person pretty much gets exclusive use of that particular room. And is that proper or improper that no one else can utilize that room while she's under contract?
Has there been demand for that? Well, you said earlier there's not much demand for that room, so this happens to be the person that stood up and asked to rent the room,
That's correct.
if you simplified it.
That's correct.
But, Mr. Mayor, my concern with that would be then, you'd have to go to the space. I wish I'd taken a picture, but the banner that shows that it's that business takes up the entire space. And if I were somebody walking in, I wouldn't believe that I could use that meeting room, that meeting room is set aside. And then my other two points on this is that it's considered a rental, but it's at a very low rent rate when you think of what that massage therapist would have to do elsewhere in the city. So we'd basically be subsidizing the rent, then also providing free utilities, free security, and then advertising, and since it's on the city's website with her banner as well. So those are the aspects that I just find concerning that I'd like. I don't want to necessarily kill the contract overall, because I know it's a valuable service. It's quite heavily used, but I just feel like we need to relook at how that contract was let and how we'll do that in the future to make sure that other massage therapists or other kinds of services that are similar aren't just expected to come forward to the city and present an idea. If it's something that we want to offer, or that we're willing to offer to one, we need to make that available to all. Just for the sake of fairness and propriety.
Mr. Cruz.
As I read this, it shows exclusive use of this meeting room. Are there other meeting rooms available in the rec center that other people could use? And could this be a case where this person would rent it only certain times and then somebody else could use the room, like check it out, so to speak?
There is another meeting room. It's not quite as easily accessible from the public's perspective. It is further back in the rec center, however, it is utilized by community groups. We have had individuals in the past that have needed meeting space, and the individual who utilizes that room, we end up just moving their product to one end of it. They utilize the room, and then we set it all back up again.
So is this used 365 days of the year?
For massage therapy, no. On average, they're working about 3 or 4 days a week. Rarely is it used on the weekends. So the answer is no. It's
So
not.
she'd
That
say-
room is not being utilized 362 days a year.
So she makes appointments as requested.
Correct.
Mr. Miller?
Haven't we hired other independent contractors to have different programs in the rec center in the past? Do we advertise for them or allow them to advertise their program as well?
I don't have the answer to that particular question, but that's how we do our fitness instructors now. They come in and they utilize our facility, they utilize our equipment. Of course, we pay for the heating and cooling and all that sort of thing too. So it's a little bit of the same. I guess the differentiation would be is when they leave, the rest of the building is accessible. In this particular one, that room is pretty much locked up for this particular vendor.
Anything further from council?
So there is an amendment to the motion made on item 12 to send item 12 to refer to committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
I hear a delay there, and how many ayes to go to committee? Ayes to go to committee? Three, and the rest are against, so that does not pass. We're now back to the original resolution. As read, has been motioned and second. Any further discussion on the original? Requires a roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, I cleared it. Can we do it again?
Got to do it again?
You need a vote, Jackie?
Got to vote twice tonight.
Hit the wrong button. Motion passes 5-2.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Now moving on to item 25. Is there a motion to allow bills and payroll?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. This requires a roll call vote, please.
Voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item are the city council have any items open for referral this time? Hearing and seeing none, any updates from council at this time? I do believe there's a few staff updates. Jennifer, you had an update tonight?
Yeah. I just wanted to let people know if they've been in the library recently, they've maybe seen a little construction on the upper level. And so they've been working on a co-lab or a makerspace area. They've actually finished the construction, so the plastic got to come down here in the last couple weeks. And then really what they'll be starting on next is really providing the furniture and equipment that are going to go in that. But, and you can see some pictures up on the screen that we have of it. And it was a project that was funded by various Blackout Gaming, also through the Community Foundation, some of the library funds there. There was city contribution into that, and the Friends of the Library also will be contributing to some of the equipment. So if you haven't been to the library recently, you might want to check out the CoLab. I think they're hoping for maybe a grand opening this spring.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, you can comment on an update, Frank. Be fine.
Question here, I want more of an update. So how will people access that makerspace?
Sure. They're going to be able to have access to it. One of the things I know the library board has been working on and discussing is, what about the supplies? You know, just an example, let's say there's material, maybe there's a quilting in their material, and so they've been looking at how are they going to come up with a fee structure for people to pay for the supplies in there, but they'll, you know, people will be able to have free access to the room, but they may have to pay for the supplies. So again, I think there'll be more, once they got all the equipment in and all that, they'll have a grand opening this spring, and people can learn more about it then.
Great questions. Stephanie, you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to let council know that we recently received word that we've been recertified as a bicycle-friendly community, so wanted to pass that along to council.
Thank you. Director Olson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I just wanted to update we did take delivery of the new fire truck Thursday of last week. This will be an additional truck in our fleet. So we currently have 4 pumpers plus the ladder truck. I believe we have a graphic to show of that truck as it sits on the plant the day we picked it up. So it's a very good looking truck. We try to replace them about every 5 to 7 years. So we will have a total of 4 pumpers plus our ladder truck.
Very good.
And then secondly, we are city staff is meeting with some merchants on College Hill, discuss security and the prevention of crimes as a result of some serious incidences that have occurred on the Hill in the recent months. Part of the discussion will include consideration of cameras, more lighting on the exterior portion outside where the city is responsible for lighting, and we do have some cameras there, but we're going to look at perhaps more cameras and higher quality cameras there. But we also want to discuss with some of those late night businesses what they can do to improve safety inside their establishments. You know, we think that if we work together with them, we can maybe have an impact on preventing some of the incidents that have occurred there recently.
Thank you, Director Olson. And last but not least, our UNI liaison student, Jacob Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council, as well. I just wanted to take a moment to address the recent shooting that occurred on College Hill. First, let me say thank you to the first responders for securing the scene and returning the area to safe condition expeditiously. We greatly appreciate that. And second, I extend my hope for a speedy recovery to those who were injured in the incident as well. Northern Iowa Student Government and the UNI student body are committed to doing their part to keep Cedar Falls safe and secure across the community. Alongside UNI Public Safety and the Cedar Falls Police, students and community members alike do play an important role in ensuring the safety of our city, and we will be discussing how students can improve in this capacity. I look forward to meeting with city officials and College Hill businesses on Wednesday to discuss how we can continue to improve public safety on the Hill. And thank you again to Director Olson and to all the people who are going to help try and improve the safety and security of the area going forward.
Thank you, Jacob. Before I move on, I actually just did have one more quick update. I think this evening we have someone from the Girl Scouts here attending. Was that on, did you have to come for a badge, or you just came for the enjoyment and the excitement of a council meeting? Probably a badge of some sort, I hope. That looks like it's Troop 6164. Oh, look, Denny got you on the camera too, so we really get to embarrass you. Thanks for coming. You're always welcome. Moving on to item 26 is to go to executive session to discuss legal matters per Iowa Code Section 2151C to discuss strategy with counsel and matters that are presently in litigation or litigation is imminent after public forum. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second requires a roll call vote, please.
Voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Hearing and seeing none, we will now adjourn to executive. Oh, sorry. Sure. Come on up, sir. I didn't see you last second there. To the microphone and to state your name and address.
My name is Dale Ohl. I live in Cedar Falls, and I'm getting tired of being asked to run for mayor or council. I won't run either one. I came to thank all you guys for being here, but there's a movement right now to remove all of you to get rid of one man. And because our fire ratings are going to go from a number 3 to a number 5 or 6, and our insurance rate's going to double. Our deductible's going to go up, and our insurance rate's going to go up. And there's enough people upset. One group surprised me because they're pro-roundabouts and anti-roundabouts together. And I never thought I'd see that day here. But gentlemen, I thank you, and ladies, appreciate your service. But remember right now that they're building they're taking donations, they're building a complete group to get rid of everybody. Strictly to get rid of the man in charge of the fire and the police department, because he should not be in charge of both. And we finally figured out that you can hire 2 policemen for 1 fireman. There's something wrong there, because you're comparing apples to oranges or $50 bills to a $10 bill, and it's not going to work. And we got to do something, because if we had another 5-alarm or 6-alarm fire, you and I were in trouble. And we've had several of them, that's happened up there. We need to pay attention because our insurance rates are going to go forward. And like I said, thank you, gentlemen, and have a good night.
Thank you. Same to you. I will open up for council. Any questions or comments, previous speaker?
Mr. Mayor, regarding insurance rates going up, I've heard that several times, and I believe we've talked with at least one insurance company regarding our ISO rating, and that is not valid, where at least that company doesn't even consider that any longer?
Sure, the largest insurer in the state doesn't even include ISO, but Jeff, you might be able to speak more towards ISO and the insurance and our rating and what's coming, or we'll be finding out.
Yeah, certainly. So for years, the city was an ISO of 4, and then during the last evaluation process, about 5 years ago, they went to an ISO of 3. So we had a reevaluation come in, and they indicated that we would go back to the 4. And so we talked with them a little bit about the process and how it worked, and realized that there are some points that we did not achieve that we feel we should have achieved. So we approached ISO, and they said that is correct. If these certain things are true, you will achieve more points. Whether we'll end up at a 3 or 4, I don't know, but we're currently a 3. There's at least one insurance company, and as recently as about a week ago, I've learned of a second insurance company that they don't consider ISO ratings at all. They go upon all sorts of different criteria, and more insurance companies are putting less emphasis on it. So as far as insurance rates doubling, that certainly won't occur. If there'll be a minor increase, that's entirely up to the insurance company if they use the ISO ratings at all. And then if you don't mind, I'd like to comment a little bit about the responses, because I know there's a lot of confusion out there with how the public safety program works. We actually have more police officers responding to police calls. And then when we have fire calls, we have the crew from the fire station go to the scene, and we have the police officers who cross-train go to the scene. What we have, the model is designed to provide more firefighters on the scene immediately, and we have more to call back should we need to do that. So we have many citizens who have the misconception that we're having fewer people respond to fires, when actually the opposite is true. We're having more people respond to those fire calls, and we've demonstrated that dozens of times in the last couple of years with the PSO program. And as we continue to train more police officers to be firefighter ones, and go through all their skills and be state certified, we'll be adding even more to that. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion out there, but this is actually, the reason we're doing this is because we're adding more to the scene, not less.
Very good. Thank you, Director Olson.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I could make a little comment on insurance claims and ratings, having been in the business for 30-plus years, predominantly the biggest factor in determining rates is the claims that are actually incurred. And since we're a community of very low fire claims or fire incidents, that would lend itself to lower rates and not necessarily raising our rates.
Thank you. Any further comments from council?
Question, do we have any data, Chief, that shows the time required to get to a fire, has it decreased with the new program? Has it stayed the same?
Well, the response from the public safety officers who are in the patrol vehicle is quicker. Vast majority of the time, the public safety officers will arrive at the scene first, and they're able to assess the scene, and under many circumstances, if it's a minor incident, they're able to take immediate action. Or if not, because we have that compressed air foam system in the back of some of the squads, which has been significant in some fires and getting a head start. They can also assess the scene and report to the fire trucks that are on the way to the scene to what to expect. But the response time from the fire trucks is the same, so that does not change. But getting firefighters to the scene quicker is what we're accomplishing, and there's certain things they can do to certainly get the process moving along.
Have we seen benefits from that? Obviously, they can prepare the scene, find the fire hydrant, check to see if there are people in the structure or animals.
You know, they can check to make sure if there is truly a fire there, make sure that the home or the property is evacuated, check for exposures. Is there exposures to other buildings nearby? Where the fire hydrant is located, they can evacuate if needed. There's certain things they can do. They carry their fire gear in the car so they can put their gear on and be ready to go when those fire trucks get there. Now, what you'll find in many of your fire calls is when you arrive, you may have something real minor like a pot on a stove, which they may be able to extinguish with a fire extinguisher, or what we've had as well as a car fire, which they can knock it down significantly to prevent other vehicles nearby from being damaged, or maybe a garage from being damaged. We had a deck on fire that they were able to put out with a CAF system, which could have clearly spread to the house rather quickly. So there's all sorts of good examples to how this works. But you know, I think what we have demonstrated, and I have shared with you many times, is the number of public safety officers that have arrived at the scene before, and the numbers. We've had, I remember incidents where we've had 8 public safety officers at the scene ready when the fire trucks arrive. 8 is a significant number to add to what we've already had. So we've got many, many examples of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that'll become more consistent as we train more and get the police shifts with more public safety officers certified.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Director Olson, training, I continue to get questions about that regarding what we're doing with PSOs as far as continuing education with training and certifications and whatnot. Can you offer a little insight into how we're approaching that at this point?
Sure. You know, I think a good example might be the 8 public safety officers we swore in tonight. They started their fire class today, and it's being taught by one of our fire captains. To the state standards with the state booklet, the state PowerPoint presentation they provided us. They'll go through a 6-week fire academy here. Then they'll take that state Firefighter 1 certification. They'll take the skills test from the state. Then we have a 44-page skills manual that they will go through with our firefighters, and they will check off every one of those individual skills on those pages, those 44 pages. When they've accomplished all of that, then they will be able to carry their gear in their car. But that doesn't mean we're done with training. You know, they're going to continue to do training, whether it be with ice rescue or the Jaws of Life, or we have a house burn coming up in just about 2 weeks, where we've got a house that we're able to burn, and we'll do some live training there, or whether it's live training over at the Waterloo Fire Regional Training Center, which we did last month. But that training continues. We also have a contract with a company that provides online training. So you watch a video and you take a test and you do that type of thing. So that's another form of training we do. But they also do training together with our fire shift. So there's continual training, as there is on the police side too. So that's something that just continues and will never end. It's not once you're trained, we stop with the training. It continues.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that then?
Sure, Frank.
Our current firefighters receive that same training when they started as firefighters, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So the training the PSOs are starting with is what a regular firefighter life a career firefighter starts with. One of the concerns I've heard pretty consistently is I don't feel safe because the PSOs don't have experience. Well, how did firefighters get their experience so that they can say that the PSOs aren't qualified? I mean, how do you get experience but to fight fires with fellow firefighters, correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, right now we're getting pushback that they lack experience, so we shouldn't have PSOs. They have to have experience. So how are they going to get that experience?
You know, if we hired a new firefighter and they started today, just like the public safety officer started today, they would go through the same process. They would go through that fire class, they would be firefighter 1 certified, they'd go through that 44-page manual, and they would go through the same certification process. And they would gain their experience as they respond to those fires, which is the same fires that the public safety officers respond to. So the training is the same. The experience is the same. You know, some as the fires occur, and we're fortunate we don't have that many, but you know, your experience is going to be with those fires as they happen, or with those house burns as we're going to be doing here this month, or with the Waterloo Regional Training Center. So, you know, the training is the same and the experience is the same. Some of the PSOs we've hired, and one of them we recently transferred to the fire department, they work the 24-hour shifts, they work the fire shifts, they don't work the police shifts anymore. Was a firefighter for 2 years before he became a police officer here. So that individual has had fire experience since before they started here as a police officer, and they worked here for a number of years before transferring to fire.
So the only difference is what we call them.
I'm sorry?
So the only difference is what we call them, firefighter versus PSO.
You know what's interesting is the 4 PSOs working the fire shifts now will go out on calls, and people don't know the difference. They're dressed in the fire uniform and they're doing everything that the fire department does, and those people don't even notice the difference. Because some of them, people have asked them, hey, what do you think about this PSO program? Not realizing that they're a PSO.
Director Olson, I think UNI was mentioned there in the previous comment. So can you answer some concerns I know folks have? First of all, the incident we had at UNI, we had amazing number of firefighters show up between PSOs and career folks. But God forbid, if there is a disaster type of scenario, can you explain briefly the 28E agreements whereby various communities can come help if needed, again, in a disaster sort of scenario, as opposed to you know, the traditional firefighting model paying for all those firefighters when that disaster may or may not happen every 10 years or 5 years, or just in the minimum part of that?
Yes. What's interesting is we typically, in the past, under the traditional model, had somewhere between 30 and, say, 38 full-time firefighters. What we're going to have now, I think presently we're into the upper 40s, and we'll be close to 60 by year's end, 60 firefighters in the city of Cedar Falls. So when we do have bigger disasters, we have almost twice as many people to call upon to respond to that scene. So that's certainly an advantage to us. But we do have 28 agreements with all of the, I believe all of the, if not most of the fire departments in Black Hawk County. And the 28 agreement is a agreement that we can assist each other and have jurisdiction in each other's, outside of our city limits to help them or they help us. And on the fire side, we do that on the police side weekly. You know, Black Hawk County may not have somebody on the north side of the town, so we'll go to the north side of the town or north of town to cover it till they get there, or they may come help us on calls, and they'll just show up. It's not that we have to call them frequently, but it's just the cooperations that we have between the cities. And we have the same with the fire. Typically what you'll have is if you have, particularly when you have a fire outside of a city limits where you don't have hydrants, then you need to haul water, and you need to haul a lot of water. So if it's north of town, we may call Janesville, and they'll help us haul water. If they have a fire in their jurisdiction that's outside of our fire jurisdiction, they may call us to bring our tanker and help haul water, as they may other volunteer departments in the metro area, because typically on a fire incident, it's a water issue for them. But if we would have an incident in UNI and we needed, say, another ladder truck, you know, we could call any one of the other departments that have a ladder truck, and they would provide that as quickly as they can.
And have any surrounding areas in our 28E that you know or can recall, have they responded actually to the scene to help Cedar Falls out in 28E in the city limits of Cedar Falls?
In the city limits, in the last several years, I can recall one place where, in that particular place, did not have a fire hydrant, so we called them to help us haul water. And so any other times we have enough staff on hand, we have enough equipment that we don't need help. We rarely need help. It's when we do, it's when we need to haul water because we need more tankers. Now, we could go out and buy another, 4 or 5 tankers, but they would just sit for a year, and we only use it a couple times a year. They just don't get used often. It's just the most efficient operation is to share resources, resources that you rarely need.
Thank you.
And can I add one more thing? Sure. The metro area in Des Moines does a lot of that as well. There's a part of the western portion of the Des Moines metro area that has what they call auto aid. And what they do is some of those cities staff minimally on their fire departments to handle the more routine calls. But when they have an actual structure fire, then the adjoining cities automatically respond to their structure fires. And that's where they're able to operate much more efficiently because they don't have the structure fires as often. But what they do, they automatically, their auto aid system automatically dispatches other cities' fire departments to them.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to comment to the concern of the fire in the towers, the dorms on campus. I lived in those towers, and the walls are concrete. There would be it'd be hard pressed for a fire to spread. I remember living there trying to tack something to the wall, and whatever I used bent. They're concrete walls, and I'm pretty sure there was one, if not 2 fires in the late 70s or 80s.
Yes.
That took place there already, and they're contained to the room. There's smoke damage in the hallways and things like that. So that's fear-mongering, I would say, if you talk about fires engulfing the towers, because I lived there, and I could attest to it.
Thank you.
And one other one, if I may, continue the meeting here. On the CAF foam system, how often has that been used to put out small fires that could have gone further? Are you aware? Is there a tracking of that so far? How long have we had that? A year or so, or 2?
Oh, we've had them quite a few years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I don't remember. Time gets away from me, but we have 3 of those in 3 of the squads, and I would say we've probably used them 20 sometimes for real small fires. Frequently a car fire. I know just a couple weeks ago we had a dumpster fire, in which they used it for. A dumpster was engulfed, kind of close enough to some buildings, but it wasn't flaming enough out to cause it. I watched a video, of the dumpster fire. But you have all sorts of smaller fires where that is assisted.
Okay. Anything further from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Anyone further for public comment this evening? Oh, sorry.
May I just offer a brief comment about the UNI thing? I can say that the UNI student body and Northern Iowa student government does remain neutral on this policy front, but we remain confident in city staff and our public safety officers, both on campus and in the city of Cedar Falls, that UNI students will remain safe and protected from any other situations. And having lived in the towers myself too, believe me, I walked down enough flights of stairs to know that there's a good evacuation plan. So,
thank you, Jacob. Anyone further for public comment? I didn't see anybody further. With that, we will now adjourn to executive session. Thank you.